When it comes to long 100-hour plus grinds like pet hunting, I tend to favor chill and laid back strats over high efficiency, high effort, and high risk strats. I have found that long-term consistency is the key to success when tackling these types of goals. If a strat demands absolute perfection from you, and failing kills your motivation and ultimately stops your progress for the day, it's not worth the marginal extra reward it might have provided. So, I gravitate towards low effort consistency over high effort efficiency methods. Historically in Graardor's dungeon, Krill and Graardor were melee bosses, and Kree and Zilly were ranged. The accuracy of Max Mage, notably the Kodai, and heals from the Sangstaff, opened the door to the first iteration of a freeze strat on Graardor, but it wasn't until the Shadow entered the fray that the other bosses became mage viable. Krill was an easy transition after already learning the 5-0 T-bow method. Kree hits like a truck since you're in paper-thin robes, but you can step under to reduce his attack frequency, and then Blood Barrage to heal up after the kill. Graardor was a direct upgrade over the previously mentioned Sangstaff method. Zilly was the last holdout for me. She had the highest mage level of all of them, and by far the hardest one to break through with magic, even with max mage and a shadow. The Twisted Bow, on the other hand, scaled to the max it could outside chambers because of her high magic level, making it objectively the better choice to fight her. The main drawback to ranged or melee methods at God Wars is the kills per trip you can achieve is limited by how many boosting pots you can fit in your inventory. Eventually you run out and need to bank. The biggest appeal to Shadow God Wars for me is the potential for infinite trips. Magic gets a reusable boost via an imbued heart, and it only takes up one inventory spot, leaving more room for prayer pots for even longer trips. Graardor, Krill, and Zilyana drop prayer restoration potions, meaning they could provide the means to stay as long as I wanted to for the session. If there were a similar low-effort strat for Zilly like we do for Krill and Graardor, that is also shadow-based for infinite trips, I would be very happy. Enter my new freeze tech. Before we start, it should go without saying, but if you do not have a shadow and near max mage gear, this Zilly strat is probably not for you. Zilly has a very high magic level and mage defense, and that means maging her is really only viable with the shadow. If you don't have a shadow, I would recommend you take her on with range, doing the classic run around the room and shoot methods. This video will be broken into 3 parts. First, we'll dive into how magic accuracy functions and the gear we use, and then we'll cover my method for freezing and maging Zilly. And lastly, we'll take a look at how this strat works even better at Graardor now. Basically, the game takes all of your offensive accuracy stats from your levels, gear, and prayers, and combines them into a single attack roll number. The game does a similar calculation for the target's defense roll too. I'm not going to dive too deep into how those numbers are established. The main point we need to focus on is how to use this number. And we use those numbers in these hit chance formulas. If your attack roll is larger than their defense roll, your hit chance is calculated by the top formula. If your attack roll is less than their defense roll, the lower formula is used. Some interesting facts you can glean from these formulas is if your attack is less than their defense, your accuracy will be at most 50%. And when your attack is larger than their defense, it starts at 50%, but it can never be 100% through normal accuracy checking means. Here is the max mage setup for freezing. All ancient scepters, including the basic one without any quartz in it, provide a 10% longer freeze. Casting Ice Barrage with the Scepter will freeze Zilly for 35 ticks, 21 seconds, instead of the usual 32 ticks, or 19.2 seconds, which means we can hit her with the Shadow 7 times before unfreezing, instead of 6, increasing the odds of potentially killing her before the first freeze wears off. The addition of the Ice Quartz increases the accuracy of ice spells against unfrozen targets by 10%, a crucial element we will be utilizing for this strat. In Max Mage, our attack roll is 42,152 on task and 37,399 off task, and Zilly's defense roll is 50,676 against magic. In both scenarios, our attack roll is less than their defense roll, so we use the lower formula for both calcs. Plugging those values into the formula, we see we have a 41.6% on task and 36.9% off-task chance to land a freeze, which matches the DPS calc on the wiki. But this calculation isn't accounting for two important things. First, it doesn't include the 10% increased accuracy from the Ice Scepter when using ice spells on an unfrozen target. There currently isn't a toggle, at least that I could find, for unfrozen targets to account for this effect in the calculation. It increases the attack roll by 10%, which brings the number to 46,367 on task and 41138 off task. Note, the adjusted attack rolls still don't exceed Zily's defense, so we continue to use the ladder formula to determine the accuracy, which results in 45.7% chance on task and 40.6% chance off task to catch a freeze. The second piece missing from this calc is that it doesn't factor in the Confliction Gauntlet's special effect. You'll notice the wiki has an orange triangle over the gauntlets to highlight that fact. The special effect triggers after missing a one-handed magic attack and makes the next attack with the same spell against the same target roll for accuracy twice. Other DPS calculators have this bonus baked into their accuracy calc, but this muddies the water because the underlying assumption being made is you'll be casting the same spell over and over until the target dies. But we aren't going to be casting Ice Barrage until she dies. We're just trying to land one barrage and then switch to Shadow to DPS her down. So it's a good thing for our purposes that the wiki has the gauntlets separated out and just gives us the baseline attack roll. The formula to calculate accuracy for the gauntlet's double roll special effect is similar to the Osmumten's Fang, and again, since our attack roll is less than her defense roll, we'll use the latter formula. Plugging in the attack and defense rolls with the 10% Ice Scepter bonus included, when you fail to catch the first barrage, the second barrage will have about 61% on task and 53.9% off task chance to hit, as well as every cast thereafter you haven't yet landed a freeze. Don't be fooled, that is still not a great percentage, and it can still fail back to back to back. What I want to know is, and it's relevant to the strat discussion later, is what are the chances to land a freeze within the first 2 attempts? To figure this out, we first have to find the odds of failing to land both the first and second casts, and then by subtracting that number from 1, we'll find the combined answer of catching a freeze on either the first or second attempt. As a reminder, here's our current accuracy success chances for the first 2 casts on and off task. Our chance to miss is the opposite of these numbers, so 1 minus our success chance. The probability we miss both the first and second is the product of the 2 of them multiplied together. And 1 minus the chance we miss both is the chance we land the first or the second. So, roughly, every 4th kill, you won't catch the freeze within the first 2 casts. Math done for now. Let's get into the Zily freeze strat. Whether it's the first kill on room entry or subsequent kills starting in the room, the basic priority loop I follow is this. Freeze Zily, or try to. Freeze Starlight, the unicorn-looking melee minion, ideally on top of Zily or Growler, the lion-looking one, it's the major. You do this so the barrage will damage 2 targets. Move to max distance from Zily, shadow Zily until she unfreezes, and repeat until she dies. After you're in the room, I start next to the altar here. When the boss spawns, the major will see you immediately, but the ranger and meleeer are out of sight and will not attack you right away. You could start Prey Mage and then switch to range if you want, but the goal is chill strats here, so I just can't Prey Range for when the ranger will inevitably start shooting at you. Try to freeze Zily. If you cast Barrage once she spawns, you have just enough time to cast it a second time before she reaches you. If the second freeze lands, she'll be stopped 1 tile away. If you don't land the second freeze, run south and keep trying. Run east if she reaches you again. Zily doesn't hit that hard, especially compared to Graardor. You can take a few swings and be fine. Don't be shy. After Zily's frozen, start shadowing her. Starlight, the melee unicorn, has probably taken notice at this point and is making his way over to you. So move near the major and freeze them together. Doing this not only stops you from getting hit by melees, but it also begins to soften up the minions for the post-boss cleanup. Next, go back to shadowing the boss as you move away from her, ideally 10 tiles or the max range you can. At some point, she'll become unfrozen. When targets unfreeze, they have a 5-tick freeze immunity, so shadow her 1 more time and then start casting barrages again. Usually around the time the melee gets unfrozen is when Zily's about to die, but if there's still quite a bit left, you can reposition and refreeze the melee on top of the major again. Use your own discretion. After Zily dies, stack the minions as best you can. Usually I can only get 2 of them on top just because Bree the ranger is just way out of range, but switch to Blood Ancient Scepter so you can overheal back up to 108 health. Having that extra HP smooths out the kill where Zily or the minions got hands. Now let's talk ideal scenario, and that's when you catch the first freeze. The range and melee minions don't see you when they spawn. They won't aggro to you until they wander into line of sight or you damage Zily for the first time. So after you catch the first freeze, the ranger and meleeer will aggro to you. The meleeer will usually path right over Zilyana, and the timing is such that if you shadow her once after the initial freeze and then re-barrage Zily, you will also hit the meleeer, freezing it right on top of her and potentially doing some more damage to her with the ice barrage. If you're worried about not hitting the overlap, you can alternatively ice barrage the meleeer directly. It will also AoE onto Zily if timed properly, but it is a moving target and may accidentally miss clicking on it. The same minion overlap can be achieved if Zily is frozen on the second ice barrage. You just have to wait a bit longer for Starlight to reach you. And then you should move to the southwest corner after freezing the melee minion. After the initial freeze wears off, run south if you aren't already there, and then east as needed, and try to land another freeze. The meleeer will shortly follow. I just default to freezing it on top of the major at this point because Zily almost always dies before the second freeze wears off. It's nice to begin blood barraging the stack immediately, and that's hard to do if the meleeer is frozen off in La La Land. One minor thing to note is if the minions have a delayed spawn, sometimes they don't appear right when the boss does, and if this happens, Starlight might not overlap with Zily correctly. And this is due to the ice barrage landing and hitting Zily before they spawn, so it doesn't trigger the aggro of the whole room. Just move to freeze the meleeer on the major like before if that happens. Once Zily is frozen in place, you're free to move around the room as you wish. I've done 3 or 4 Zily boss tasks since getting the Confliction Gauntlets, and it's been fun developing and experimenting with this method. This mage strat is how I plan to hunt for the Zilyana pet post 200 mil Slayer if we don't get lucky with boss tasks before then. Alright, bonus time. Let's talk about the Graardor freeze method. In both on and off task scenarios, our attack roll exceeds Graardor's defense, so this time we'll use the upper formula for both the first and second casts. The numbers are as follow. Combining the first and second cast in a similar fashion to the Zily calc, we have a 95% chance on task and a 92.5% chance off task to catch a freeze within the first 2 casts. It is really easy to catch a freeze on him. Similar to Zily, if you stand on the wall next to the altar, you have just enough time to cast 2 barrages before he reaches you. He melees a 60, so be cautious if you're planning to just phase tank him in the unlikely event he doesn't get frozen in 2 casts. Just be ready for it. After some experimentation, the best place I found to stand is the northwest corner. The mage spawns on the far south side, and standing in this corner forces the major to come westward as it's coming north to attack you. After catching a freeze on Graardor, wait for the mage minion to approach and start attacking, and then move to freeze the melee minion on top of the range minion. If you froze Graardor on the second cast, go around the south of him and then freeze the meleeer similarly. After freezing the melee minion, run to the northeast corner. This will drag the major closer to the ranger. From this corner tile, run 2 tiles west if Graardor is frozen on the first cast, and 2 tiles south if frozen on the second cast. This aligns you with his southwest tile and the leading edge of his 3x3 size, which gives you the most time to react and run away when he unfreezes. After the boss unfreezes, if he was in the first freeze position, make your way to the west wall and run south before he reaches you, throwing more freezes as you go. If he was in the second freeze position, you can just run south and do the same. After Graardor dies, again usually before the second freeze wears off, position the meleeer between the ranger and major and AoE all 3 of them by targeting the melee at the center. This stack of all 3 is why we ran from corner to corner. This mage minion management, say that 5 times fast, is purely optional. I came across it on my last Graardor task and it seemed worth sharing. If you don't care to stack all 3, you can just stand on this tile near the altar, aligned with the southwest tile. Try to freeze him as best you can, and then move to freeze the meleeer on the ranger, as outlined earlier. After he unfreezes, you'll run to the west wall and south, just like before. One last minor tip I have for both Zilyana and Graardor is to leave your excess supplies next to the altar. I'm not suggesting you should ferry every food drop there. In fact, it may be advantageous to leave some of them in the middle of the room just in case the boss is standing over your food pile and you need it. But put the majority of the stuff you're planning to keep near the altar. There are times when the altar's 10-minute cooldown will expire just before the boss spawns, and if your loot pile is elsewhere, you won't be able to utilize the altar until the kill after it's ready. You're caught between a rock and the hard place. Do I hit the altar and then try to run back to my pile or start tile or away from the altar, and then, trying to gauge, hey, is it enough time to run across the room, hit it, run back? Like, just start next to the altar. This is another benefit of having our start tile on the altar side of the room too. You don't have to worry about that specific timing. And there you have it, how to freeze Zilyana and Graardor in the year 2025. Thank you for watching. If you found this useful, please leave a like and consider joining our channel members from just 99 cents a month. Channel members get access to my hot takes on the weekly update and poll blogs. I just recently started streaming on YouTube to share the Slayer grind and the journey to 200 mil all with you, live and unscripted. The streams are open to everyone, but only members will have access to the VODs. I'm still working on a concrete schedule for that, but if you see the red circle around my icon, stop on by. And now it's time for me to get back to Slayer. I hope to see you in the streams, and if not, we'll see you in the next milestone video.